Professor Subbarao, what is your take on the newer phosphate binders? How convinced are you about the?
See, we have patients on dialysis for all, some of them even completed 20 years. So we have that's the point now. See, we have now patients living on dialysis for decades, and I think we have to be very careful with the management of their MBD. With the previously patient used to die, though the average life is about 2 years, 2 to 3 years, according to the most of the data. But we have patients almost 30-40% of them finished almost a decade. So I think we haven't yet made a complete the protocols for how we manage these patients, particularly living long with MBDs.
Yeah.
But we try to avoid calcium. The calcium binding phosphate binders we don't use. We avoid as much as possible and use sevelamer. We don't even use lanthanum. So we use sevelamer and monitor the PTH, calcium, phosphorus every 3 months and make necessary adjustments.
Yeah, he made a mention about the gastrointestinal bleeding in sevelamer. Have you noted this worrying phenomenon?
No.
He said that he has crystals in sevelamer.
Yeah, I think this has been well shown in the submucosal deposition.
Yeah.
I don't think we have systematically done an endoscopy and see whether there's any deposits in those. But whichever patient who had undergone endoscopy for any other reason, we didn't. The gastroenterologists have never showed us anything less like these lesions.
Yeah, the only patient who had a massive hematochezia was the patient who received enema of this potassium binder. So the potassium binding resin was.
That will produce. That will produce a lot of erosions. Colonic erosions are very common. Unless you use them along with your laxatives.
Yeah, that was one complication that I have seen.
Yeah, it's well reported.
Yeah. Dr. Vishwanath, what is your take on what is your favorite phosphate binder?
Sir, as of now, as Subbarao sir said, sevelamer is the one which we are using. But overall, if you look at phosphate binders, our usage has been little lesser. Most of them are vegetarians, and then people on dialysis as such. We are seeing maybe around 30%, 30-40%, and majority we are using sevelamer. Recently, we have been using this newer molecule. Only complaint patients have is black colored stool. So even though we tell them ignore that, but people are really concerned about black stools. That's the only concern which I have come across, and my usage has been lesser with this molecule. Experience is less. We have a couple of people who are on hemodiafiltration where we don't need any phosphate binder. Maybe clearance is better because they are on convection also. So we have a couple of them where we don't need any phosphate binders, but majority has been sevelamer carbonate. Slowly the usage of this molecule is increasing.
Yeah. Dr. Kishore, what is your take?
Yeah, as Dr. Subbarao told, one of the as the patient gets dialysis duration gets more and more, the most of the patients actually succumb to cardiovascular disease, and when you do an angio, what you see is which is not the vessels which are through and through pipe stem, they're not amenable to angioplasty. If any drug that can do some benefit to this, it will definitely improve the quality of life or longevity of these patients. So first thing definitely should be adequate dialysis. And as at the initial stage, the patients are still on calcium binders, which we definitely have to rethink and go for non-calcium, non-calcium binders. Regarding sucralfate, in a few patients which are used, or never not used de novo, in fact. Maybe those patients who are either not tolerating sevelamer carbonate or those patients whose phosphorus is remaining quite high. At least for the few weeks which are used, it has shown some benefit, maybe, and only long-term use
Yeah,
with
whether
tell
phosphate gets depleted, the purse gets depleted a bit because it's so costly.
exactly.
You will have to talk to the companies about the reduction of cost. That may come around only when you have a large volume. Professor Dr. Hirmat, what is your choice of phosphate binder?
Hi, Zapat. See,
Hello.
most of us, most of us are having patients who have low calcium rather than high phosphorus levels.
Yeah.
So, our main concern is to get the calcium up, and so I do use calcium binders, phosphate binders, and with that, once the phosphorus doesn't come down, I'm using Sevelamer as a thing. We don't have a problem because most of them who are on those supplements are on oral iron also. The stool color is not an issue for them because what we are using a new molecule. I'm starting Dino for a lot of patients on dialysis now, and they don't find any difficulty at present. They are very well comfortable. But what major advantage what we are finding is the phosphate levels are drastically coming down. Fantastic reduction in the phosphate levels, which is what we require. So I'm happy using it. Sevelamer calcium blockers also I'm using. Along with that, I'm using Sevelamer and lanthanum. I don't use more, but Sevelamer, the dosage is really high. 800 milligrams is what is required to reduce. But here with the new molecule, I'm able to use it with 3 tablets or sometimes even 2 tablets because some of the people, they don't eat 3 times. We talk of three meals, but they do take only 2 meals. So for them, I usually use only 2. So it's on our under our control. How are you going to use it? So we are using it 1 or 2 times, sometimes 3 times. So I'm comfortable using it. Phosphate levels have really come down, which is an advantage. I don't find more of gastrointestinal problems or anything at present.
Yeah. Thank you. Dr. Rajesh?
Yes, Dr. Sampath.
Yeah. Tell me about your experience of using calcium acetate, calcium carbonate versus the Sevelamer and the newer phosphate binders.
Yeah, we thanks for the question. We still use calcium-based phosphate binders because first and foremost, it is very cheap and it is difficult to convince a patient regarding a expensive drug right from the word go.
Yeah.
And initially, to start with, it is may not be a problem because calcium, phosphorus, and the initial PTH we assess. If it is acceptable, we start with. I usually start with calcium-based phosphate binders. But all said and done, over a period of time, we find that the phosphorus is going too high and the calcium is dropping, and we'll have to probably change to other drugs. So we, in that situation, I usually go for Sevelamer.
Yeah.
Sevelamer, the response with Sevelamer has been quite good, barring the expense and the pill burden. So I have used this new molecule, this SFO, for 3-4 patients. I found that it is quite effective. The phosphorus comes down in around 4 weeks' time, and the palatability is quite good. And they can chew, and it's just 1 tablet per meal. So that way it is comfortable. As you rightly said, the pulse gets depleted. So my thought is, if you can bring down the phosphorus initially with this molecule for maybe for continuing the drug for maybe 1 or 2 months, and then can we withdraw it and then maintain? Otherwise, that will be a question to be answered in the Indian context.
Yeah.
So that is how I do. And in dialysis patients, I don't have much experience in using this drug. And I do agree with your niacin study. We have also done a small study on nicotinic acid, and it is found to be quite useful. And I came across that commentary that Goliath versus David, commenting on niacin. Of course, it is a very useful drug. As you said, the speaker was also discussing. We don't have significant long-term experience with that.
That was, he made a very nice observation about the herpes zoster increasing.
But I was wondering, what is the relation between herpes zoster and niacin? You can't have a direct relation.
I don't know, but
logically thinking.
That was news to me. I never knew that. Yeah, Dr. Sri Bhushan.
One more point is if a patient is in hemodiafiltration, obviously the phosphorus control is easier. That is what we have also looked at. Dr.
Sri Bhushan, in your very busy Nizam's Institute, what is the favorite phosphate binder and how do you manage hyperphosphatemia in your dialysis patients?
I think you're able to see.
No,
You
I'm
are
not
able to
able to. You are like God. You are invisible, but you are only heard.
invisible and invincible.
Yes.
But I'm quite convincible, actually, no problem.
Yeah.
And you're able to, it's
Yeah.
audible.
Yes.
Yes, yes. The thing is that, so I think we used all right from calcium carbonate, calcium acetate, lanthanum, sevelamer carbonate, sevelamer.
Yeah.
I think all these things we have used, and even now recent sucropheric acid,
Yeah.
this funny drug also we started using it, actually, to be very frank, for the past a month or so.
Yeah.
But still, my favorite, I should confess that it is sevelamer only.
Yeah.
So the simple reason is that probably the more amount of literature available, and the literature is quite convincing,
Yeah.
and complications or adverse effects, so-called adverse effects, are very, very less,
Yes.
and tolerable, and we don't see that such a kind of a pill burden that we exclude.
Okay, can you go back to the earlier slide, please? You will just project it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
more,
that
more
every-
number of
yeah.
more number of drugs. Pill burden should not be a problem because we don't use more than 3 to 4 maximum, and it's not possible for our patients also to restrict the phosphate and whatever the phosphate diet, like including the high protein diet which they have been taking on dialysis or otherwise.
Yeah.
We don't really restrict much, and I never felt that hyperphosphatemia will be a problem if we do dialysis. And in case hyperphosphatemia of more than 7 or something like that, we tend to give a little bit, one more session or 2 more sessions at least for 4 weeks or something like that, when we recheck it again after a month. So that's what we have been doing. But the phosphate binders, in a significant way, if you really restrict, they'll be restricting the protein and they'll become malnourished. And the acidosis would actually change their body morphology, like muscles and the bones.
Yeah.
So we don't really advise such a restriction of the phosphate even on dialysis, because as such our protein intake of our patients is very, very less. So phosphate binder we definitely use. The sevelamer is the one which we have been using since a long time, and I'm quite convinced that it is okay. And especially its ability to decrease the vascular calcification studies, the EBCT trials done before, were quite convincing that if you give the patient for such a long time, more than 3 to 4, 1 to 2 years, probably there can be an improvement in the calcification status of the aorta and other vessels. So sevelamer carbonate is definitely good, and lanthanum also I used it. Somehow I did not feel the presence of it, and I was not comfortable and not convinced about the efficiency of lanthanum. And the GI disturbances were more troublesome, actually. We can't keep on listening to a person with a 2.334 creatinine and who doesn't require dialysis, otherwise coming to you and calling you again and again, saying that I'm having nausea, vomiting. Then I tell you, oh, is a nausea, vomiting? You please come down fast. And we comes and we check the creatinine. It's again 3.8 or 4.5. Then it's not something like, you feel that it probably uremia related symptom.
Yeah.
So which is not the case otherwise. So that's why I was not convinced. Calcium, so definitely only during my DM days, and immediately after that I used calcium carbonate and acetate differently. But now I'm quite convinced that I don't want to use calcium-based phosphate binders. Anything other than calcium-based is okay for me.
Yeah. So I'll just move on to another question. Dr. Floyage has said that he has now started very restricted use of vitamin D. In India, almost 90% of even general population have very low levels of vitamin D. How commonly are you using vitamin D analogs in your patients? I'll ask this question to Dr. Vinod Kumar, and also it will be an open question to everybody, and you can butt in with your answers. Vinod?
Good evening everyone.
Yeah.
Mainly we are using vitamin D analogs in a significant proportion of the patients. I think more than 50 to 60% of our dialysis patients are on vitamin D analog, especially those patients who are having hypercalcemia.
Yeah.
When the calcium levels and phosphorus levels both are on the higher side, we tend to stop it. So that is the only situation when we try to stop it, or when the phosphorus levels are too high and it is difficult to control. That is the situation when we try to stop vitamin D analogs. Otherwise, a good number of patients in our population are on vitamin D.
Yeah, Professor Vijay Kher, what is your use of vitamin D analogs in dialysis patients? How commonly do you use that?
Yeah, no, I would say that these days, what Dr. Florio also said, that initially all of us were fascinated by vitamin D, active vitamin D, rocaltrol or calcitriol. And we used to do that in a higher number of, and any PTH higher than 300, we would get worried and would give vitamin D, active vitamin D. But now, over the last many years, the use of vitamin D, active vitamin D, is definitely gone down. Vitamin D deficiency, D3 deficiency, is obviously fairly common. That's a different ballgame of correcting deficiency, but giving active vitamin D, especially to correct hyperphosphatemia and others, is definitely gone down. And I find that overuse of vitamin D3, active vitamin D3, even in the CKD population before dialysis, CKD 3, 4, 5, everybody seems to be given, irrespective of whatever the PTH levels are. Calcium, phosphorus also may not be given, but vitamin D is being given. And I think that's a misuse of active vitamin D3 in these patients without monitoring and without is, I think. And many of our patients in the dialysis unit actually have PTH less than 150. And these patients are usually low bone turnover bone disease, basically. And I think these are patients where hypercalcemia is going to be and calcium scores are going to be high, especially whenever you're going to give calcium binding phosphates in these patients. All other patients, I think, if the PTH is above 600-700, and then you would surely want to get these PTH levels down, then obviously one would use calcitriol in these patients. That's where I would use.
The calcitriol and the calcium the phosphorus binding binder, the phosphorus binding are actually acting opposite directions. We don't use. I don't recommend calcitriol if the phosphorus is high.
Yes, I agree. I agree. But once the phosphorus gets down, if the PTH continues to be high, see, as I said earlier also, that these days now PTH of about 400 or 500 doesn't bother you as much as it used to be earlier. But now you take in dialysis population PTH of about 600 or so, I don't get worked up that this needs to get down. I'm okay with that kind of PTH. And phosphorus levels by and large are reasonably controlled with effective dialysis and good phosphate binders these days. So I don't see uncontrolled hyperphosphatemia as I used to see, say in US. Is very common in the dialysis units to see phosphorus levels of 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's predominantly dietary, huge protein intake and phosphorus intake, and which is not being affected by and they don't eat these phosphate binders. The US patients don't. So you don't see good phosphate control in those countries. But our patients are, one is that the nutrition is poor, phosphate intake is also probably not that high. We are plant-based phosphates which are not absorbed to that extent. So many things favor low phosphorus in our patients rather than too high phosphorus. Majority of the patients. Yes.
Now I'll go on to two modalities of investigations which are not being very popular in the dialysis population nor in the CKD population. One is the coronary calcium score and the other is the DEXA scan. So are these being taken up by nephrologists in a large number? I will put this question to Dr. Sanjay Srinivas. Sanjay? Is he there? Dr. Subbarao, can you just enlighten us whether you are doing this coronary calcium score or the DEXA scans in your patients?
No, we don't do it routinely. Unless it's been asked by the cardiologist. For any specific reason. We don't do it on a regular basis. I think, I don't know, how does it going to change our way of...
Now the recent KDIGO has not been against the diagnosis of osteoporosis in patients with long-term dialysis patients, and they say that DEXA may have some role. So how do you look at this investigation in Dr. Satish and Professor Kher?
Yeah, about ourselves, we are not doing coronary calcium scores as a routine.
Yeah.
Like you said, mainly for angios are done more commonly than coronary calcium scores, I think, especially symptomatic patients. And about DEXA scan, once in a while we do a DEXA scan for a patient who we suspect is having severe osteoporosis. And other times when patient hears from somewhere that such a scan is available, so they want to do. That's the only thing. Otherwise, routinely we are not doing DEXA scans also. Though, like you said, the new guidelines say that you can do DEXA scan if fracture risk is supposed to be high, but then estimating fracture risk is also not one of our priorities.
Yeah, I think all patients on dialysis are high risk for fractures.
Fracture. So that it doesn't make any sense.
You don't have to spend 3,000 rupees to give that answer. I think the dinner is getting cold. We'll say it tonight.
I think happy vaccination for everyone.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we are starting next week.
Thank you.
So the take-home messages from my side is that sevelamer seems to be a very popular choice of phosphate binder in India, and the calcium-containing phosphate binders are have taken the backseat with the usefulness of sevelamer as well as the reduction in the price of cost of this molecule. And sucropheric oxyhydroxide, very happy that I am able to pronounce it in one go, is a drug which is going to be the latest, and now the jury is still out, and we will have more evidences coming in with our continued use. I thank all the participants for this great conference on the phosphate binders and the usefulness of reduction of phosphate. So I'll call it a night. Thank you very much.
Sampath, I would like to add few things here. Since it's been raised, I think we also should do a study on these non-dialysis patients.
Yeah.
I think probably I'll ask these company guys to collaborate on non-dialysis patients and see how it has never been done anywhere, and we don't have any data on. Seems to be a good molecule. We can try it on non-dialysis patients and see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see Dr. Manisha and Dr. Arvind.
Yeah.
Can you just light up your faces and then tell us what you think?
So I think it's a very valid point. And first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Sampath Kumar sir, for driving the discussion very nicely. I will keep it very short and simple before we conclude. I know that I'm standing between dinner and you. So if you look at what Dr. Floj has discussed today, we have asked him to focus on the entire spectrum of phosphate binder and to bring out those key messages. And I'm sure that I think with the start of new year, he definitely touched upon certain points which are very useful in day-to-day clinical practice rather than just focusing on the theory part. And of course, we have launched Dynulta, and we kept a brand name very short because sucropheric oxyhydroxide, you may not remember, but I think Dynulta you can easily remember.
Dynulta also is difficult to pronounce.
So I think with this molecule, first time in India, we have launched it, and as you said, the jury is out there. What we need is more evidence. So more you use it, more evidence will be built up. And definitely for dialysis or non-dialysis population, you can certainly start trying out in your patients, and then we will get back to you once we have sizable data available saying that can we make investigator-related publication around those data points. But definitely, I think his last slide where he has touched upon very key aspects of sucropheric oxyhydroxide. I think some of your patients currently deserve Dynulta, and I hope you will continue to use it in your patients. And at the same time, I think this area of CKD, MBD is a very vast ocean, and there are certain areas which we don't know. So if you have any scientific information or any data gaps you need, you can definitely reach out to us, and we will provide you information more on a holistic basis when it comes to phosphate binder and specifically Dynulta, right? So thanks a lot for very wonderful discussion and bringing out certain points very well taken, and we will start working on those, right? So with this, I would like to thank each one of you for spending time today, and I'm sure that you have benefited from Dr. Floch's presentation. So thank you so much and have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.